Welcome everybody. I think this is my 6th walkie-talkie. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I've come out again for a nice walk and it's pretty chilly today. You can see the clouds there. But it's good to be out nonetheless, to get some fresh air and to share my thoughts with you this morning. Or is it the afternoon? I'm not quite sure. What was I reflecting on this morning? Well, as you know, it's April the 1st, which is known as April Fool's Day, isn't it? And it's a time where people prank each other, play jokes on each other, and say, April Fools. And that got me reflecting on a particular passage. Actually, there's loads of passages in the Bible that talk about foolishness. In particular, this one, Paul says, the Apostle Paul says, the preaching of the cross to the Jews is a stumbling block, but to the Gentiles, that's those who don't believe in this world, it is foolishness. And then he says these words, but to those who are being saved, it's the power of God. And I just think about, me being out here each day, walking and talking, sharing about a God who died on a cross. Sounds a bit foolish, doesn't it? When Jesus taught his disciples, he told them what was going to happen, that he was going to die and that he was going to be raised on the 3rd day. They probably thought that was foolish. They didn't believe him. Remember, Peter even rebuked him when he said such things. And even when he did die on the cross, remember the disciples were sort of cooped up in the upper room, and it wasn't until this lovely lady Mary came and said, the tomb is empty. And then they ran to the tomb and they saw that it was empty. And when Jesus showed himself to all the disciples, apart from Thomas, Thomas came in and the disciples shared with him that they'd seen Jesus, the risen Christ. And he probably thought it was April Fool's Day. He said, I'm not going to believe, not unless I see the nail prints in his hands. And then Jesus turned up. It's not April Fool's Day. Put your fingers in these hands. And then, on reflection, after seeing Christ, the resurrected Christ, Thomas knew that this wasn't April Fool's Day. Instead, he got on his knees and he said these powerful words, my Lord and my God. That's powerful, isn't it? Thomas, this once man who was called Doubting Thomas, is now proclaiming that Jesus Christ is Lord. I love that. Now, the Apostle Paul was the last apostle, and he said these words. He said that we are fools for Christ. There's another word there, isn't it? Foolish or fools for Christ. He said we're a spectacle to the world. We're the scum of the earth. Just think about the Apostle Paul. He was once this man who was very much highly esteemed by most people. Probably people saluted him as they walked past. He was from a really good tribe, Jewish tribe, the tribe of Benjamin. He was the Pharisee of the Pharisees, and he called himself blameless. And he probably thought the cross was foolishness when he was persecuting all these Christians. And it wasn't until he saw the resurrected Christ on the road to Damascus in a blinding flash of light which blinded him, and then he's like, hold on a minute, this is not foolishness, this is true. And ever since that day, that's why Paul refers to himself as a fool for Christ, because here was this man who was once highly esteemed. Now he is being persecuted vigorously for his faith. It says they were in rags and homeless, naked and shipwrecked and beaten and all those things. To those who are looking on would say, actually, Paul, you're foolish. Swapping that good life for being persecuted in such a way. And we know that the rest of the apostles, literally everyone but John, were martyred for their faith. Surely this is foolish. Well, remember, the preaching of the cross is foolishness to the Gentiles, to the people who don't believe in the world. But remember, to those who are being saved, it's the power of God. Why? Why is it the power of God? Well, you have to understand that each one of us in this world, each one of us have sinned, and each one of us has fallen short of the glory of God. And there's this cloud of sin. Look at that cloud up there. That is a barrier between us and God. And there it is at the cross. Jesus removed that barrier. He paid the penalty for our sin that we might be forgiven, so that that barrier could be removed and that we might come to God, have a relationship with him on the basis of what Christ has done, not what we have done. There's where the power is. That we've been forgiven, that we have a new chance and a new hope with God. Isn't that powerful? That's not foolishness to me. That is the power of God. So preaching might seem foolishness to some people who are listening to this, but I have received that power. I've received that salvation that God has given me freely through what Christ has done on the cross. How cool is that? How cool is that? So I'm going to leave that thought with you today. The preaching is foolishness to the Gentiles, but to those who are being saved, it is the power of God. Amen. I hope you have a lovely day. I hope you have a lovely week. Don't forget, if you want to join us for prayer tomorrow at 7 o'clock on Zoom Room, you can do. It should be on our Mariners Facebook page. If you want to join us for a social, we'll have a good laugh. After that, it's at 7:30 on Zoom Room also. So I'll say bye to you all.